The following is a word-for-word reading of an article from our friends at Arlington. It was published on August 29, 2025, and written by Dan Egito. He has done such a fine job of reporting that I'm just going to read what he has written. At least, that was what I had planned to say. I emailed Arlington on December 8th to ask for permission to read the exact text, but I didn't receive a reply. Therefore, I'll just read a paraphrase of the information. According to an Arlington County official, an entire professional broadcast studio will be going up for auction because of about $70,000 in unpaid debt at Arlington Independent Media. The items include camcorders, cameras, MacBooks, iPads, microphones, audio mixers, audio recorders, turntables, lighting kits, TVs, desks, chairs, broadcasting equipment, and a 360-degree photo booth kit. And they will be up for bidding over the next few weeks. By order of Arlington County Treasurer Carla De La Pava, Rasmus Auctions will be conducting the event. They describe it as, quote, a rare chance to purchase fully operational broadcast equipment from a working studio. According to De La Pava, the seizure of assets is also a final attempt to reclaim some of the roughly $20,000 in delinquent taxes and $50,000 in unpaid rent that she said AIM owes the county. My job is to pay off taxes, but I also owe it to the individual taxpayer to get as much money as possible for these items that we're selling, De La Pava said. I have that obligation. This is not the first time that De La Pava has had to sell people's property because of unpaid debt, but auctions normally involve assets like cars or houses, not entire studios. She said that there was only one other major instance of a recent auction like this in Arlington. It had some very expensive items, she said, but I don't think it had the sheer volume of things. I will tell you, this is rather large. Bidders are allowed to set up a time to inspect equipment at 3700 South 4 Mile Run Drive on Friday, September 19th. The auction will close on Monday, September 22nd, and removal will take place on September 24th and 25th. De La Pava said she does not know how much all of the equipment is worth. As of August 29th, most of the items don't have any bids, although someone has already offered $1,100 for a Sony Alpha 7 IV camera. According to De La Pava, much of the bidding will probably happen in the last 3 days of the online auction. I don't want you to think that there are things on there for 70 cents. They won't go for 70 cents, she said. The treasurer stated that it's still theoretically possible for AIM to stop the auction by paying off its debts. Don Masters, one of AIM's remaining 2 board members, did not provide comment at publication time, but said that an update will be coming soon. Parenthetically, I emailed Don Masters on November 28th and December 16th for any kind of update, but received no reply. I don't even know if he's still officially a board member. WERA, AIM's flagship low-power FM station, stopped broadcasting last month. The organization's website has come back online, but it displays only the AIM logo without any text or links. AIM laid off its entire paid staff in March of 2024, following months of financial uncertainty and internal divisions. Of course, Arlington County also withheld a planned $125,000 funding payment scheduled for April 1st. In a final email to AIM producers in April, former producers representative Jeff Hoffman said the nonprofit had, quote, no cash reserves, significant debt, and limited county and community support. According to De La Pava, the outstanding debts are owed by AIM and not any individual within the organization, while she also noted that auctions like this are rather unusual in Arlington. She said, Arlington County residents and businesses are fairly good at paying their taxes. This is a last resort that we use. Again, I would like to have given thanks to Dan Agito and Arl Now for the article. It really was very well written. It was on December 8th, 2025, that I actually learned that the auction had taken place during a phone conversation with Falls Church Community Television. Following my previous episode of Arlington Whenever News in July 2025, I had tried to contact Takis Karantonis for any updates, as well as the last members of WERA, but received no replies at all. I had also checked the Arlington County website news section. I emailed a couple of former AIM members for updates, but got no replies. Even the former Arlington Weekly News show made no mention of the auction. However, I made a Google search on December 8th under, quote, Arlington Independent Media Auction, and that yielded several links, all of them over 2 months old. From my remote location in Hagerstown, Maryland, I had already given up on purchasing one of AIM's used cameras. I bought a similar one online, but by the time I learned of the auction of the other equipment, all of it had long since been sold. In the article I just paraphrased, I noted that, quote, someone is already offering $1,100 for a Sony Alpha 7 IV camera. And I wondered, how did this someone find out about the sale in advance of the auction? It made me curious about who wound up purchasing the video equipment. I had already considered the possibility of a lot of it going to the Arlington County government and Arlington Career Center channels, and I wondered if some kind of informal grapevine had given them advance notice of the auction. I didn't know if it was possible to find out, and at that point I didn't think that I was the most likely person to succeed, but I tried anyway. I emailed the county on December 12th and was pleased to receive a reply after only a few days. Here is the reply. Thank you for writing to the Treasurer of Arlington County. In response to your inquiries, first, was Arlington County able to recover enough in auction proceeds to cover the reported $70,000 debt? If not, what is the current outstanding balance? The reply, the auction generated $84,282.18. After subtracting sale costs, the treasurer recovered $63,712.09 for Arlington County to satisfy the outstanding balance. Second question. Do you know what became of the archival videotapes? The answer. The treasurer did not inventory or auction any videotapes and has no knowledge of them. Third question. Is there a way to determine whether or not Arlington's government TV channel and/or career center obtained some of the higher-end equipment? And the answer. Treasurer and Arlington County officials and employees were prohibited from participating in the auction in either their governmental or personal capacities. I hope that this information was helpful. Thank you again for contacting us. Sincerely, Christopher J. Sadowski. I found the auction details at the Rasmus website, and I made a tally of all the sold items. It came convincingly close to what Mr. Sadowski showed. His figure was actually slightly higher, so I might have missed a couple of items. I did the math. The remaining unpaid rent is now $9,543.17. Will that be written off, or perhaps offset against the $125,000 operating grant that the county withheld from AIM in April 2024? Maybe the Arlington County Treasurer is satisfied. However, it is unknown about AIM's other creditors, including some former employees whose final pay failed to materialize. There has been much attention paid to the management problems starting around 2023, but I think it's helpful to look at what AIM was originally intended to be and what became of it toward the end of its first 40 years. I call this what really happened. Back in 1981, it was called PAC-TV, an acronym for Public Access Cable Television. It was created as a part of a deal by which the Comcast Corporation would be allowed to lay their cable all over Arlington County. In the beginning, Comcast was also required to provide a dedicated broadcast channel for the public access programs. They were also required to provide a facility and equipment free of charge. That first facility consisted of a single disused locker room on the second floor of their building. I was there. A used video camera and a used video recorder. It was barely sufficient, but it was enough to produce the first two programs, the Arlington Weekly News and an Unfolk Semanal de Arlington. The significant part was that both the facility and the equipment were to be provided for free. No paid rent. It was around 2016 that statewide changes allowed Comcast to stop providing free studio space. At the same time, Arlington County began a series of funding reductions to AIM. It was obvious even at the time that the added cost of rent, coupled with the reduction in funding, would harm AIM financially. But Arlington County board members referred to the situation as a challenge for AIM to become more self-sufficient. I pointed out at the time, and now reiterate, that the Arlington County Board itself was not and is not self-sufficient, even as they have given themselves pay raises. I believe that the management problems of 2023 only accelerated what was an inevitable financial decline for AIM. The station was never designed to be anything other than a financially supported service, like the public parks and the public libraries. And AIM's management and members were unable to adapt the organization or to arouse sufficient business and community interest to get the help they needed. Perhaps a killer show like AMC's Mad Men would have brought in some additional attention and cash. But that simply didn't happen. Anyway, the estimated $50,000 in overdue rent that was part of the reason for the auction was never part of AIM's original arrangement. To put it simply, the rent deal got unilaterally changed. There is a glimmer of hope for some kind of independent media in Arlington. I discovered an October 8th press release from someone named Wilson Bender announcing plans to launch Arlington Autonomous Media that would start broadcasting on the Roku platform around Christmas Day 2025. I found a few YouTube videos about the project, but so far I haven't found any content that is of the quality that AIM programs presented as recently as 2021. As of now, Arlington Autonomous Media seems to still be just a glimmer. After all this, I had wondered whether there was even any point in producing another Arlington Whenever News segment. But then I thought about all the times my own inquiries had been met with silence. I decided that I didn't want to behave that way. Therefore, this is my announcement that this is the final installment of Arlington Whenever News. It's obvious that I am too far away and too far out of the loop to be effective. That being said, I'm not entirely finished with the former Arlington Weekly News show. The name has been changed to DMV News Now, and it is being intermittently produced at the Falls Church Community Television Facility. I am helping with the editing of those shows, and I might contribute an occasional segment like a community bulletin board if the current producer, Michelle Boateng, wants one to help fill some broadcast time. For now, here is an actual Arlington-based community bulletin board segment covering events planned for January 2026. The Arlington County Public Libraries have a number of kid-based events planned for January 6th. They include Crafty Kids, Tuesday Paper Crafts at Glen Carlin, starting at 3:30 p.m. The address is 300 South Kensington Street. Also on January 6th, there's Builders Club in the Campbell Room at Shirlington, starting at 4 o'clock p.m. That address is 3400 Campbell Avenue. There are a couple of events at the Central Library. Teen Hangout, Ready, Set, Game at 4 o'clock p.m. and High School Tab at 5 o'clock p.m., both in the Quincy Room. That address is 1300 North Quincy Street. Meanwhile, Cherrydale is offering Pajama Story Time, starting at 5 o'clock p.m., obviously for very young children. That's at 2190 North Military Road. Finally, there's Story Time with a Police Officer, starting at 5 o'clock p.m. at Glen Carlin. Again, that address is 300 South Kensington Street. If Craig Nolan were reading this, he'd probably throw in a comment expressing the hope that the police stories won't be too vivid for children. But by then it'll be 2026, so you never know. So much for the kids. Parks and Recreation is offering virtual art presentation with Joan Hart. The location is virtual. It's a chance to join art historian Joan Hart for a visual art presentation. She'll delve into the stories, techniques, and cultural impact behind iconic works of art. You can explore masterpieces from around the world in an engaging and interactive online session. That's on Monday, January 5th, 2026, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. Since it is online, at least you don't have to go out in the cold weather. Next up, Understanding Dementia. The location is Arlington Mill at 909 South Dinwiddie Street. It says that 1 in 10 older adults will develop dementia. Sidney Palinkas is a dementia education and outreach coordinator with the RAFT program. He will present on what dementia is, the types of dementia, and how it affects the brain. They will also discuss how to support someone living with dementia. That's also coming up on Tuesday, January 6th, 2026, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. Ironically, 55+ membership is required. This seems unfortunate to me, since some of the people who will need to support someone are probably much younger than 55. Finally, something for teens. It says, make a 2026 vision board collage as a cover for a bullet journal. They say hot chocolate, magazines, and craft supplies will be provided, but you can feel free to bring any extra materials. The ages specified are 11 to 17, and registration is required. That's on Tuesday, January 6th, 2026, from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. You can contact Charlotte Terry at 703-228-4775 or email cterry@arlingtonva.us. So that wraps it up for this Community Bulletin Board segment, Arlington Whenever News, and most likely Arlington Independent Media. It's been a fun 44 years.